Grizzlies fans, it's time for another Grizz game day update. This one is a late one, a 9 p.m. Central tip. The Grizzlies are taking on the Timberwolves for the third time this season. Joining me again is John Krawczynski to break this one down again. And John, I am this much more excited for this one because we have talked about this team before this season. We got a whole new roster now to talk about. Brand new.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you talk about the season that you guys have been through down there. It's incredible. And I was really impressed by the win the other night and just how you guys grinded through it. So this will be interesting because all new faces. And we'll see how they see if that little bit of rivalry kind of transcends it and see if these guys get after it tonight.
Yes. I love a little rivalry. I think it makes good competition. Okay, so just in case Grizzlies fans or Timberwolves fans are tuning in and they're like, new roster, what are you talking about, Kelcey? The Grizzlies have about 25 million injuries. John Moran is out for the season. Desmond Bane is out for at least 6 weeks. Jake LaRavia is the newest one. He's out for at least 3 weeks. Steven Adams is out. Brandon Clark is out. Marcus Smart is out. Derrick Rose is out. The list goes on. And so you are starting a lot of guys who are relishing the opportunity. They won their last game against the Golden State Warriors. But a lot of them were on the G League team last year, have been up and down on the G League this season, last season. And so Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams Jr. were the leading scorers in the last game. Were you able to watch that game?
I didn't see all of it, but I saw the highlights of it for sure. Vince was on fire. So
Vince was just doing his best Luke Kennard impression. Like it was a wild game. So as much as I want to talk about the Grizzlies, I want to talk about how this new roster configuration goes up against the number one team in the West. And so I say that to say the Timberwolves are the best in the West right now. They're 20th in points per game. They play at a pretty slow pace. They don't put up a lot of threes. Where are they winning games?
They're winning games defensively, KJ. I mean, they are the number one defense in the league by a wide margin. With Rudy Gobert, with Anthony Edwards, with Jaden McDaniels, they just lock people down. And so what you see mostly in when they get things to their pace and when they get it to a half-court game, it's really difficult to score on them. And they just kind of grind offenses into dust. And then they hope that Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns kind of get hot enough to give them enough offense to score 110, 112 points. And that's usually more than enough for them to win these games. And so, yes, they have a lot of room for improvement offensively if they want to be a team that can be considered a contender in the West and going deep into the playoffs. But defensively, they have been so tenacious that that has carried them through this early part of the regular season.
In terms of this game tonight, it's guys who, aren't the Desmond Banes, the John Morants of the league. They're just not. But what they do is try really hard. Their effort is high and they get out and run. And that's how they won against Golden State, is they got out and run. Transition defense, has that been a strength? Like, is it just defense in general?
Yeah, right. It's yes. And surprisingly, KJ, transition defense has been a strength because, they're so big with Towns and Gobert up front. Last year, especially, they got just roasted in transition. They were too big. They were too slow. They had a hard time getting back on defense. And so this year, they've made some changes to the way that they approach transition defense, including not crashing the offensive glass as much. They're really concentrating on getting back, and that has limited opponents' transition opportunities by quite a bit. The other thing that really helps them with limiting that is they make a lot of shots. They turn the ball over, which it can be problematic for transition, but their field goal percentage, their 3-point percentage is very high. So a lot of times, if they are not turning the ball over, their opponent is taking the ball out of the basket and going the other way, which makes it very difficult to get transition going. So I think that if you look at all of the surprising things that have happened for this Timberwolves team this year to be number one in the West for the last 2 months, being as good as they have been in transition defense is probably right near the top of it. They've really just made that a focal point, and they're trying not to get beat that way.
It's interesting you say that because I look at the first two games between these two teams. They held the Grizzlies to 97 and 103. So obviously way below their season average. But I look on their offense and it's exactly what you said. They shot 50% and 53% from the field. So when you're making half or more than half your shots, you don't have an opportunity to get out and run on those long rebounds, on the steals. The last thing I want to talk to you about, and Ant is like technically day to day. We're going to assume because it's a national TV game that he pushes through and plays today. But Cat has been a killer against the Grizzlies specifically. He is 18 and 24 points in those two games. What is it about Cat that he is just, he's an all-star. I get that, but he just seems to be thriving this year.
Yeah, it's been a different version of Karl Anthony Towns in terms of, he's always been a guy that puts up huge numbers. Yeah. It's not uncommon to see him 26 points, 14 boards, 4 assists, that kind of thing in his career. And that was always in his first 8 years, but there was always a question, and he heard some doubts about, are those numbers that he puts up impactful toward winning? Mm-hmm. And this year, the numbers are a little bit down in terms of scoring, in terms of rebounds, in terms of a lot of the things, but his shooting percentages are really high still. He's still a 50-40-90 guy right now, which is incredible. And he is adapting his game to play with this group better than he's ever done in his career. So he knows that Ant is kind of the primary scorer. He knows that Rudy is the defender, rebounder. You have Mike Conley as kind of the quarterback, but
where does he fit in?
Yeah, and it'll be different night to night. Some nights they need him to shoot a ton of threes, and he does that. Sometimes they need him down in the post scoring there, and he does that. Sometimes they need him just facilitating. He's also defending at a really high level. So all of the numbers are a little down, but the impact, I think, is up. And he's been their most versatile and adaptable player through these first 40 games now, and that's been a huge reason why they are where they are.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how the Cat matchup is, especially like you said, Cat and Rudy, and the Grizzlies are just so thin in the big department right now. So it's going to be an interesting game. I hope it's a good one. I did mention it is late tonight, so grab yourself some coffee, get your friends ready. It is a 9 o'clock Central tip. That's 10 p.m. Eastern. John, thank you so much for breaking this one down, and I really do appreciate you. I hope it's a good game tonight.
Always great to see you, KJ. These ones all seem to always be good. No matter who's playing, these teams like to play against each other, and so I wouldn't be surprised at all for it to be tight all the way through.